Mm, mm,
And we're live. Good morning, and how well did you sleep?
mm, mm,
Where are we waking up this morning?
mm,
Beautiful.
mm.
Did you eat a nice meal last night?
Yes.
You're looking chipper.
I know. Thank you. I have coffee.
Hello, friends. It's that time again.
Time to wake up.
And
Think.
clearly, we're not
Sometimes
thinking.
it can take us
2 or 3 cups of coffee.
my wife, she likes to take a stimulant. I've seen the transmittal of the knowledge that it's better to drink coffee 90 minutes after you've awoken because
Says the tea company.
no, said a fellow who looked into it himself. Because what caffeine does is suppress the thing that causes you or that plays a role in you're feeling sleepy. But if you abstain from caffeine for the first 90 minutes, it allows that stuff to naturally dissipate. Therefore, instead of suppressing it when you first get up in the morning, if you have coffee early or too early, then you wind up having the crash later in the afternoon. But if you give it time to naturally have those levels come down, which means of course you'll be slower, then you won't suffer the crash in the
I can tell you that
afternoon.
doesn't work. Because I waited the fictional 90 minutes yesterday
Uh-huh.
and still crashed.
Well, maybe you've just been sleep deprived for a very long time.
No, and plus I get to sit in pain for the first 90 minutes of my life.
Well, yes, but that could also be the effect of a lack of hydration.
No.
The recommendation is to drink water, or so the common knowledge has been going around of late. Have water early in the morning
Wait 20 minutes.
and coffee after 90 minutes.
Wait 20 minutes. It'll change.
So at 8:30, I'll have coffee.
You normally drink coffee.
No,
Tea?
nothing.
Not even water?
Not even water. Maybe.
If you're
Maybe.
thirsty.
No
Maybe.
wonder why it worked. Never mind. Just for your knowledge, hubby, they're open till 10 tonight.
Who are they?
You know who they are.
You'll have to remind me later.
You know who they are.
They are open till 10 tonight. Is it Hand and Stone? So we can finally get our couples massage?
Nope.
Hmm. Oh, Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. Good morning, Don.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Mama.
You know, my wife has been into every state except the one from which you hail.
Oh, Hawaii?
She's been to all 49 other ones, the UK
Wow.
and Australia, but not yet to any of
What
the
about
islands.
I'm gonna have
Alaska.
to wrap her up in a blanket and take her with me.
Yes,
Put her in my suitcase.
There you go, Stacy.
Yes, please.
About
Drink coffee.
Alaska.
Oh, she been to Alaska?
Yeah, she's taken a cruise to Alaska from Seattle.
Wow.
She was the her father took her on that cruise, and who took you to the UK?
Oh, Alice.
Allison took you to the UK. Who took you to Australia?
Alice.
Allison took you to Australia. She was the March of Dimes ambassador for 1986-87
Mm.
and
Oh,
88.
oh, 2 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
so yeah. So she got
That's
to
awesome.
visit a lot of cities and small towns and states wide and far.
Mm-hmm. She's sampled.
I want to take him on a cruise, but he won't go.
We've already been on a cruise.
No, that wasn't a fucking cruise.
Well, it was a casino trip out of Florida back into Port Canaveral, in and out, just far enough so that they could legally gamble on the ship.
That was a day
Oh,
ride.
It
it's
was a night
illegal
boat
to
ride.
gamble in Florida?
Yes, there is a well, there I think we have
That's no Hard Rock Casino.
there's the Seminole Hard Rock Casino that you can go to.
Yeah.
Um,
Hawaii has no gambling, so I didn't know Florida did.
and then they've got gambling ships, the Silver something, out of Port Canaveral, maybe a few others, maybe Miami does this too, but you can get on a ship, they'll go past the 12-mile mark and then in international waters, so it becomes something they can do.
Wow, the
Right.
stories they told us about.
It's-
Oh, sorry, Hiram. I was gonna say the stories they told us about why we can't have gambling and gambling ships in Hawaii. Not that I wanted it either way, but I just thought it was interesting. You're gonna have gangsters raiding these ships, and we're gonna have all kinds of crime that's going to happen.
Oh, actually, I'm glad you bring that up because we used to have at the conclusion of World War II, we had something like 800 destroyers, and now we're down to, or maybe 1,000 destroyers, something real up there. And with that, the United States basically patrolled the world's oceans, making trade safe. However, at this point, we're down to 80 such vessels. So we're pulling out of that subsidizing global commerce business.
Good.
So
Good.
quite likely, yeah.
No, I think it's good that we're pulling out of it because at the same time that we were so-called bringing peace, we were also bringing terror.
My wife wants to show our new acquisition. I don't know if you can see him. This little
What am I-
chihuahua.
What am I seeing? What color is he?
He's black, but he's got a white
Oh, I see his little cell.
That is my literal walking best friend. And you. Yes.
Oh.
and the sun is starting to rise in the east. Oh, look
Yes,
at that
look at
wonderful orange
that.
glow.
Yes, look at that.
I breathe better with him.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh.
They're doing
We could
Yeah.
it's kind of neat because we've got this eastward orientation, so I can literally watch the rocket launches right from the comfort of the living room.
Oh, really? You're not far from Cape Canaveral, I guess.
Well,
We're too far because I want to go on about 19 cruises.
I used to live closer because I used to live 1 mile east of the University of Central Florida, and you could still
Hey.
hear them
And you're blocking my coffee.
during the
now.
first launch where they landed it was a nighttime landing of a Falcon 9. You could hear the sonic boom. You don't hear them anymore because they changed the dynamics on bringing the first stage back down. But my mother was sitting out on our front porch, and she saw the light come out, and she came and notified me, and I came back out, and then standing out on the front porch, you could see this flame descending downward,
Mm.
and it was coming down for its landing. But I'm actually 2 miles north of Orlando International Airport, so
Oh,
yeah, I'm still quite a distance away, and you can see it from here.
I
Yeah.
only want to take one about 9 cruises. But hey, that's just me.
Well, maybe we will.
Maybe.
hey,
not.
Hyro. Hey, Hyro. Did you get my message? I sent you a message on Meetup.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me find out. Let's
Okay.
see. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, in the, let's see, in the notification messages.
Funny. And then I also saw what you put in the in this event chat, Rami,
Yes.
and you put that for us to discuss today.
Yeah, as we might like.
Okay. Let me go look at it again.
Don't do that.
Typing.
Oh, yes, try to.
What?
Hear me. Did you?
Notification?
Mm.
No.
No more.
Okay.
Let's see.
Is it possible to sin against the virtue of faith?
Mhm.
Hmm.
It's a question that came up out of a Facebook discussion hosted by a Canadian who
Oh.
is a native, whose
No.
people are
No.
a distinct group out of China.
Oh no.
And he had posed a question, and someone of a, I think, Catholic background had mentioned the sinning against the virtue of faith. And I can understand sinning against a person. I can imagine sinning against a place, but I had not considered, like, this is a thing. We use things. We're supposed to love people. We get the two reverse. We wind up loving things and using people. And that's how the world's in chaos. But the idea, is it possible to sin against the virtue, a thing, a concept? And is that even important? And I realize that Catholicism, in a way, because it comes out of an intellectual sort of scholastic, or at least it's been very much developed as a scholastic sort of system of belief. It tends to, therefore, objectify any and everything, I think, in the process, because it's all about figuring it out. Unlike the Eastern Orthodox, which would rather define God in terms of, for instance, all the attributes that God is not, and leave the divine as a mystery.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But sin against the virtue of faith. So faith is, well, first of all, the word faith is just a word, but it's also an idea that's cognized for us at different levels of our consciousness, I suppose. And the idea of sin, missing the mark, again, has the same types of elements involved with it when you talk about what it is and how it affects us. It's relative to each person. So I don't believe that you can necessarily sin against the virtue of faith unless that's something you want to believe in, unless that's a challenge you want to give yourself. Otherwise, I believe that we humans create problems for us to overcome. We keep doing it. We keep creating a problem for ourselves, and then we get angry about it, and then we want to find a solution to it. We get mad when other people don't jump in and fight and war. We need everybody to be on board with this. But in reality, we don't have to create a problem.
Okay, so I'll give a teaching from an Islamic perspective. Some disciples came up to, no, some youth. They came up to God's apostle and they said, "Teach us, teach us." And he said, "Not become angry." And then later, the youth came back and said, "Teach us, teach us." And his response again was, "Do not become angry." You had said something about the nature of sin missing the mark. Another definition of sin is falling short of the glory of God.
Jack, you are the smartest.
Or I guess that's a consequence of sin. So if there is a lesson there, it's not to sin in order to have a greater understanding of God.
No.
Oh,
He already felt
what?
Terzighi. My wife is
What?
super spiritually sensitive, and she felt Dominic come into the room, and suddenly her mood changed, even though
What?
he said not a word.
I don't like it. I don't
What?
like it. I don't want it, and I don't like it.
Hyro has a question.
I don't care.
If you
I
prefer, I can put
What?
on headset.
I don't want it, and I don't like it. I don't want it, and I don't like it.
What?
I understand.
Get
So-
rid of it.
Let me go into the front
No.
patio.
No, no, no.
Consequence
Make them go away.
of sin.
Make 'em
No,
go
the consequence of sin is
away.
is the glory of God? No, is the failure to attain the glory of God is the consequence of sin?
I think that God leaves us. I mean, he doesn't leave us in one sense, but I think in another sense, at a certain point, God has to leave us. Does that make sense? At least in a way, like his promise doesn't leave, but his presence will.
Make it.
I don't think his presence leaves. I think our cognition of his presence leaves.
Make it.
I remember
Make it
that
go away.
little poem about footprints in the sand or something like that, walking along the beach, and there's only one pair of footprints, and then God says, "That's when I was carrying you during the struggle, when there was two sets of footprints, and then there ends up being one." But I believe that there's another meaning to that, which is that the duality of this world coming into one, because we are only one. God is within us. I'm not talking about the creator. I'm talking about his essence is within us. His presence is here within us. So when we feel that God is not with us, it's because our consciousness is not present.
So the consequence of sin is the absence of our awareness of God.
Yes, that's what it is. Our awareness ebbs and it floats. It's how life is. You meld back into the matrix, the everyday doing, going, and then we awaken again, or we snap back into our true selves, and we remember none of this is important. You know, what's important
So
is my soul.
what is it? What is it that is the consequence? No, there's sin and the consequence of sin. What is it that the consequence would be sin? what is the origination of sin? What is it that the consequence would be sin, and then the sin would cause the absence of awareness of God? If we were able to discover it, then we would be able to eliminate sin. What is it?
If I can share, Gerald, in the biblical story, it
Mm.
said sin's lying at the door. So I don't
Ooh.
know where everybody's going with the idea with the word sin.
Oh.
Sin is about jealousy.
Oh,
The story of Cain and Abel was because of Adam had fallen and the ground was cursed. Cain brought things from the ground, expecting a blessing. His father could not give him a blessing. And in the process, he was jealous. His brother Cain. Some of the
Mm.
results of jealousy, he actually he killed his brother. Now we're talking about the blood, which went into the ground. And why was Adam able to know? If we're going by the story, he knew energetically. So now the whole Bible is written on the jealous God.
ooh. Ooh. A
So now-
jealous God.
So now what Lord God is the creation of God. So Don is, I'm going where Don is going on that. We're talking about the essence of God, but there's the Father and then there's the other Father. There's the grandfather kind of ideal. But I don't think the gods have anything to do with humanity's affairs.
Mm.
So when it says, son, be careful because sin is at the door, you're going to miss the mark. Hence what Don was talking about, missing the mark, misleading, misinformation. Now, where people get the idea that Adam had sinned, no. Just said, do not eat of it, for in that day you shall surely die. How would he know? Because that Lord God on the sixth day already had done that. And even the serpent, which was able to reproduce, had asked Eve quite clearly, did God say so? Christianity story of Jesus, let your yes be yes and your no's be no's. Adam was never talking to God. So Eve, if she was aware, and her husband, for whatever came from her womb, would have said, no, God never spoke to Adam. Done. But we are the product of the fallen part, not sin. We're still doing the whole concept of one nation wants to take over another nation. Why? Out of anger, maybe? Out of sin? You know, how many people, instead of respecting others, are jealous of others? Oh, look what they have, not realizing the effort that they got to put. Now, that's just my interpretation of it. But then again, I've read the Bible many times, both when I'm fasting and all that. And there was shit, sorry, my language, but there was shit that came to me and it was a tough thing for me in my head to wrap around because I was just trying to be the observer of that. Now, the whole thing could be a story.
What
Mhm.
is jealousy?
Mm.
What is jealousy?
Wanting something that either A, you don't understand what it took the other person to do it, lack of respect, envy, you could throw envy in there. I think we've all experienced it in some way.
Could jealousy be that which produces sin? That it's the it that then sin would be the consequence of. Hmm?
Where there's two of us, you'll have me. There's an energy called truth, and there's also the energy called sin. It's when you start realizing it is actually an energy.
Oh.
It's like Don talking about the essence of God. There's the essence called sin. Is it there to teach you something? Yes. That's why Adam had said, son, be wary or be careful. Sin is lying at the door, waiting to see whether or not you want to come. It's like a demon. Go ahead, sorry, Charles.
Jealousy. What if jealousy is the no? What sin? Let's see. Hmm. Hmm. So sin, no, the consequence of sin is the absence of an awareness of God. Consequence of sin is the absence of the awareness of God. What is the consequence of jealousy? Sin. So if we prevent sin from, no, if we prevent jealousy from arising, we will prevent sin and prevent the absence of an awareness of God.
Well, I don't think that sin is only jealousy. My understanding of the word sin is anything that prevents you from being in presence. Anything that gets in the way of your state of consciousness, awareness.
Any,
So anything, it could be anything that causes sin. And the effect of sin, or the net effect, is that you're not in conscious awareness. You're not in presence with God. You're one self. And so it causes the duality. It causes the right and wrong, the yin and yang, which is life. It's the process of life that causes evolution. But you either evolve up or you evolve down. You spin up or you spin down. You spin down based on how long you are detached from yourself, your connection with the one God. You spin up the longer you spend connected with that presence of God, the light. So I don't think we need to spend so much time trying to not trying to not sin. I don't think that's the point, because awareness cures it all. If we don't create a problem, we don't have anything to fix.
oh, so sin is anything that causes the absence of awareness of God. Anything that
Yeah.
causes the absence. So, mm, so
But what I think happened in so doing, we try to help each other over the eons. We try to lay guidelines. And so what we do is we try to say, hey, you know, don't spend so much time doing these things because they will distract you. But in reality, it's not the doing of those things that's the problem. It is the state of mind. But it's like a guide. And what happens when we try to leave breadcrumbs or guides for each other, words get in the way. We misunderstand the point. Therefore, we end up with churches who are teaching people, like I grew up in a church, you cannot, drink alcohol. Women have to wear skirts and dresses because pants belong to men and you can't dress like a man, which means you freeze during the winter. I did that for the first part of my life. And you can't wear jewelry because then you'll be a Jezebel. And that's, it's a sin. I mean, they made sins out of being so that we spun around in the darkness all those years, confused about what we're supposed to be doing, because we set rules to prevent sin, when in reality, setting the rule is the problem.
So sin is anything that mm, prevents, is that a good word? Prevents the awareness of God. That is an obstacle to the awareness of God. Could I say that?
Yeah, I could. I think so. What do you think, Dom?
Kind of already shared. sin is energy. It's an energy. It's like the messenger. It's only there because there's a lesson to be learned. The fact that a person wants to keep on talking about sin, it'd be like me talking about another human being. It's the message. So now, if people are going to go based on this story called God, when God spoke, there was other things creating. Then there was the word of God. And he thought things were good. He never talked about evil. Good. Whatever good stays, whatever is the waste, is like shavings from a piece of metal that you're carving something. It goes there. Because Adam and Eve, or in this case, Adam, because it was taught upon him, not Eve, did what he did, they had fallen. So we're living in the evil, the material world, the wasteland. The essence of God is everlasting. And we have, I don't even know if that's the essence, because God talks about breathing life. And all of our forms, we are the breath. So now to talk about sin, it'll be like talking about the bridge that had collapsed. And we keep talking about the bridge. What are the structures and the reason why it collapsed? So when a person wants to say by virtual things, they're doing good. If not, sin is at the door. It's there to tempt you to see, are you truly serious? You want to go this direction? But when people keep on playing with words, which in this case mislead, miss the mark, and then you get people that are into the dogmas of Christianity or the Quran and all that, they're still missing the mark.
So sin is the moment when something comes up and you have to make a decision, and there's jealousy, and then you have, what is jealousy? Wanting something that you didn't earn, or some violation of what is good. I don't know.
You could have many things. I've had thoughts of harming a human being. There's a moment I squashed it in thoughts. I've had lust feelings. Sometimes I haven't squashed it. I've had anger feelings. You can talk about the deadly sins, the 7 deadly sins. If you act on them, hear the word I'm saying, you act on them. We're in the acting realm. We have many personas.
Karma.
Yeah, action. Yes. We keep doing this over and over again. Me and Don and Jaro are going to a studio, and there's the producer. We'll call him Sin. Okay, cut. Don, Dominic. I didn't really like the way you killed each other. Let's do this again. Well, what happened if I don't want to kill her? I said, well, then you go to a different part of the studio. You can learn something else now. There is people that have talked about, I've been here many lifespans before. They can recall that. Now, no different, there's people that can see colors when they play musical instruments. I can't deny them of that. I can hear them. But humans, we get into this moment when we can't do something because they're not aware of the self. They think, well, then nobody else should be able to do it. And it's tough having conversations with people that are caught up in their dogmas.
What?
Because, go ahead.
What does it mean? Or what images arise with the phrase missing the mark?
Mm-hmm.
It's like shooting an arrow and you miss it.
They talk
Like
about mark
you
of
have
the
a
beast.
mark would be the bullseye, and you're aiming for the mark and you miss it.
Yeah.
Or a certain
I mean,
circle.
I think I
objective.
think that's a good image. Yeah. But what happens for some people when they imagine, say, those words that you used, and they imagine that target, they misunderstand. They believe, okay, they failed. They didn't get it right. And that's not it. It's not about right and wrong. It's not about failure. It's about incorrect focus. That's all it is. And there is no, you have to be right and you have to be this particular way. It's not that at all. That only exists in the physical realm. So, but what's the purpose? I want to ask you, what's the purpose of trying to have an image in your mind of what is missing the mark? What's the point of that?
What if I put on my glasses, then I can focus on the object, on the mark, then I won't miss it. I'll be more aware of it. So maybe missing means being out of focus of the
Mm,
mark.
I like that.
Mm, mm. Oh, and my lenses are dirty. So I need to clean the lenses.
To a certain point, I sense this, that there's this cosmic abandonment. Our parents decided to have us as offsprings here and left us here in this war zone. So there's going to be many things that are going to tempt us. Trying to get order, have a structure, life. You know, there's a reason why people use the word miss the mark, and then you hear about mark of the beast. The beast is us, form that we're in, human form. It's the results that we can actually obtain, understand, reason, question. So when somebody is angry, there could be righteous anger in a moment, and they used it. No different if a person is going to be lustful. There could be a moment where that you need that to reproduce. It's when people bring in their likes and dislikes when they hear the word sin that becomes a struggle. They can't see it as the polarities of it. An angel comes to you, people just make the quick assumption they're good, they're there for good. They see a demon, they assume, and when I say see, they feel it, they sense it, they pick it up. Maybe they are putting their glasses on, Jarro, maybe they're even putting on better speakers in their ears. They just assume, opposed to asking questions. Who art thou? Why are you here? Well, you should know, Dom, why you're here. But if you don't, ask a question. You know, I've had those moments. Why am I here? For what purpose? And then when I do hear other people, it's a lot about structure. Got to go to work, got to have kids, I got to raise them a certain way. Really? So it's your job to raise them? Oh, okay. So you're doing the digesting part for them? Well, no. Are you doing the breathing part? Well, no. Well, I don't know if anybody's ever told you that. You're doing very few of an effort. And then, of course, there's the, Don even said the word, because a lot of us, that's what we do. What's the point? What's the one aspect? There's many pictures, but what's the one picture that's important for me? And jealousy is one of them. I just use jealousy because in the story, that's what the energy was being used. And what did he do? Then he eventually did a couple other things. He got angry. He got clever, brought his, supposedly his brother out into the wild, out into the forest, probably turned him around. So turned around, killed him, dropped his blood. So did he miss the mark? You know, he fulfilled the mark. Sin only guided them to what they wanted, what they lacked. Now, if we want to play with the idea that God or gods created all of this, I could entertain yes, because humans don't know how to create all the forestry. They can replant them, but they didn't create them. Same with the water, same with the sky, same with the sun. Very fortunate for us that we could probably manipulate certain aspects, maybe not me, you and Don, but it does play a role. We don't create the ants, we don't create the worms, we don't create the fish. We can help along in the reproducing maybe.
So what is the solution to sin. If sin is the missing of the mark. So what would help us attain the mark?
It's tough, Gerald, because we've polluted the water. That could be classified as missing the mark. We've built major cities near waterways that has probably just as much destructive, let alone constructive value. The constructive could be for the human benefit. The destructive is good for nature. So to expand the energy of sin, back to what I had said earlier, the Bible is latent with the jealous God. If you do what I do, if you do what I say, I'll put you up as a light in up on a mountain like a candle, and all the other nations can admire you or whatever. But if you don't, I'll strike you down. Did it imply that this jealous God or this jealous demigod created humanity? No.
So I think that the way to prevent
Mm.
missing the mark is to stop trying to prevent missing the mark.
Good way, Don. That's a great way, Don. Yeah. Mhm.
The way to prevent missing the mark is to stop trying to prevent missing the mark.
Yes,
Mhm.
stop. Don't do it. Turn away from it. Don't try to find problems. Trying to find problems is missing the mark. Trying to prevent missing the mark is missing the mark because it's an effortless experience. But the words I'm using are not really helpful to everyone because the words mean something different to everybody. But what I'm trying to point at is that the effort we keep making to stop or prevent problems is causing the problem.
Mhm. Don, you're in an industry as an accountant. There's probably a lot of people ask you to fudge up numbers.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's
So-
a part of my
So is that missing the mark? Then the question could be posed, well, who make the rules? I said, it's not about making the rules.
yeah.
You know, you have the person that is paid to monitor that stuff. If they went right across and did zero tolerance, if not all people would be screwed that are in the tax system when it comes to money. So unless a person wants to be, and I've done it myself, a hermit, even monks try to do this. Now, they had just been indoctrinated to think that we don't believe in God. Okay, there's another indoctrination. You just tell a whole bunch of men, hey, we're going to convince you to shave your head, wear purple, but yet we're going to make you feel different. You don't believe in a thing called God. Okay, whatever. The guy that you follow, Buddha, did he create himself? No. So are they missing the mark? Probably.
Yes, all of them, all of us miss the mark. All of these, anything that is a structured system that's telling you this is the way is not the way.
Well, if we're in these forms, the mark of the beast, we are the beast in the sense we're in the form human. That's why in Commerce Court, they call the human the beast.
And what people have done in the past to try to help us, is that they try to answer exactly your question, Jairo, and they try to set up for people the best way to be successful, to have as little distractions as possible. I see it clearly that this is all initially intended different than it has come out. It's come out to be a commercial industry across the board. Even now, we have our different, monks across the world who are coming out, and they're now, selling this belief system that you come and you work and you work on your body and you concentrate your mind, and this is the way. And it's actually missing the mark because now you're focused on something else. You're focused on building this body and focused on being focused, and you're missing everything at that time. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I actually believe that all of these ideas are good ideas. It's a good idea if you want to go ahead and do it, but it is not the way. And that's all right. That's how we learn.
I think, Don, where people forget when it comes to this the concept of sin, you have to eventually present the word humble. I'll give you an example. Me and you guys, we commit a crime, we're wearing the prisoner's uniform, and then we're sitting out there in the prison yard there, and we're yapping. Well, yeah, what do you think committing a crime is? The fact that we're wearing the uniform confirms that we committed a crime. It's when people say, I was falsely accused. I say, you're still here. The fact that we're wearing these forms, this is a prison form. It indicates that we've committed a crime somewhere, whether in past you fought for a legion of people that were warriors. You're still committing a crime. Yeah, but those people were harming us. You're still committing a crime. That's why we have the mark. We're in the vessels. We're here to learn something, hopefully humbleness. God, obviously, I've erred. I wouldn't be here if I didn't err. But people like to intellectualize the word sin, like the intellectual word morality. If you're doing morals, you're not talking about it. I know I'm intellectual. I'm humble enough to say, I'll have these intellectual conversations with people. Because if I was practicing it on a constant basis, I wouldn't be here. Same with if I'm farming, I'm not here. Now, somebody could turn around and say, well, Dominic, but what about the people that are still teaching farming? That could be them. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about myself, because most people, when they talk about sin, it's a one-to-one basis, but you can be in the energy of sin. If you're with a whole bunch of people and they're very distraught or indifferent, sin has a field day. Why? See that person over there? I'm going to see if I can convince them to harm another human being. I'm going to convince that person to see whether or not they can steal from this other person. I'm going to see I can convince this person if they want to become a singer. People don't realize you're in the realm of where the ruler, which is sin. People think for some reason, well, you know something? I think I can topple the mafia and the whole structure. Good luck trying to convince all the people that have already convinced themselves that, but we like the structure of the mafia. We do benefit from it. Or even if we don't benefit, that's all we're familiar with. These are intellectual conversations. And if you ever talk to a bunch of monks, I'm thinking, yeah, the same ideal. But if they surround themselves with a whole bunch of other people believing in the same crap, they're going to think, well, then it must be the truth. Think about Christians, think about Muslims. They spend 5 times a day. And I say, okay, so then why was it a long time ago you guys should do, the forefathers used to go towards Mecca? Or Petra. Well, I don't know that, because that was commerce. You're praying to a cube, Saturn. Now, Saturn does bring a value. There's energy coming from Saturn. That's why even the Jews, I think it's the Jews or the Hebrews, whatever they want to call them, they put a little cube on their forehead. Now, are they missing the mark? Well, if their structure is set up that you have to do that and you choose to leave it, then you missed the mark. If I choose not to be Roman Catholic, I've missed the mark. It's when people bring in their likes and dislikes, and more times than not, what they do is they're attached to one and they resist the other. Then when they start philosophizing, they're going to skew it. They start talking about how other cultures treat each other, they're going to skew it. So they're going to miss the mark. Best way I can ever ask a person that's of dark skin would be ask Dawn. If I have to ask it, Dawn, by the way, I'm also going to ask questions what it is to be a gender, the opposite gender, and my wife's not around, I should ask Dawn. But if I'm going to disagree with her, then I'm talking intellectually then. Well, Dom, I think what it is to be dark and to be a woman would be, well, Dom, you're not one of them. When I say one of them, you're not dark-skinned. I could be dark-skinned in the sense that I grew up with a whole bunch of albinos, and then I would be dark-skinned. But I still wouldn't be a female. But then you get all those surgeries done, I'm still not a female. It's almost that my wife got actually offended with the whole idea of people having these operations, thinking that I think I'm a male, but I want to be a female. That's a slap in the face on how nature works. But if you feel that you have feminine aspects of you, go for it. But to think you're a female when you're in a male form, okay, there's a child again. But I would have a tough time having that conversation with that person because I would realize, well, Dominic, you have too many defenses.
Yeah. I think we trap ourselves up. We trip ourselves up because none of it matters. For example, when you were saying about, oh, what's it like to be a brown person or a dark person? If you ask me, you would receive an answer that doesn't even give rise to the question,
Mhm.
because I don't know what it's like to be a dark person. I don't live under those terms, those words. I don't even know what that means. I don't know what it means to be Black Lives Matter and to be a Black person. I just have brown skin and I live
Yeah.
my life. And I don't see from a lens that says I'm brown and this is how I show up in the world and people interact with me based on my color. That doesn't exist for me. And it never has existed. I remember they tried to implant that in me when I was going to school,
Mhm.
but it didn't take, because my existence, what I experienced, was stronger than what they were trying to program me with. So that part never picked up for me. And I don't think it ever will. I've had some experiences in my life where people try to say that was racist. But what about when another Black person mistreats you? Is that also racist? It has
Mhm.
nothing to do with color. It has to do with two people or people and how they interact. Anyway, that's my view on it.
And thank you, Don. That's why I shared it, because I know you would give a great setting to it. Because I know for me, it'd be like somebody saying, well, Dominic, you Italians make great pizza. Really? Oh, I forgot. Oh, yeah, because I was born and I look like I'm Italian. Really? It's like, I get it. I don't see myself as Italian. I don't even see a lot of times myself that I'm aging. There's a part of me inside that said, oh, and I look in the mirror like, oh, yeah, you're getting older. But who's you? Those are our personas. But I'm giving a quick how people, that's how they interact. They would assume, well, I'm going to ask a question. Well, the question is asked to oneself. Are you really Italian? Are you a Catholic? Are you electrician? Are you dominant? Those aren't me. Those are like little pinpoint landmarks, but that's not who I am. And even if I wanted to play the game and think, well, I can only represent me. And this is where I think we do miss the mark to a certain point. Am I the body? No. Should I at least respect the body? Yes. Am I failing at that? Yeah. Because I have to consider, because I put it into my radar, there's concept of fasting. There's concept of how to eat your food, when to eat it. Because if not, then I'm insulting our ancestors or whoever they may be that are spending time, whether scientifically or trying to understand the biology of the body. Then why do we break it down to blood types? Why do we break it down? If you stop eating your last meal at, say, 6 o'clock, and it depends what hemisphere, just because I get all that information doesn't mean magically I'm going to do all those things. I like to accumulate information. That's why I know sometimes it's an intellectual conversation. Where other people, how can I use that practically? Hear the word acting, the word practical. How can I apply it? It's like knowing knowledge and applying knowledge kind of ideal. And for some people, they can do both. Other people, they might just want to know knowledge. Other people just want to apply it. They say, Dom, I intuitively know it. I just want to do it. Oh, okay. Who am I to tell them otherwise? I might question it if I know other people are going to hear this, so other people can learn. It'd be like me questioning Dawn if our kids are in our presence about something, because they're the next generation. But if it's just me and Dawn, then it's a private conversation, and then I have to read the room. And a lot of times, Dawn, sadly, I'll fail it because I'm thinking I like to ask questions to start up a conversation. It's like rolling a ball down a floor just to see the momentum of the ball going down the floor. So.
Well, I was going to briefly respond to say that when you were talking about the body, this vessel that we're in, being like a prison, I believe at some point I was seeing it that way. And sometimes I find myself feeling that. I have the feeling of, oh my God, why am I in this prison? Let me the hell out of here. But an understanding has come to me that I feel like I am cognizing and have been cognizing for maybe a year. And it is that this body is not a prison. The prison is in our minds because of the trap we put on ourselves of beliefs. And that creates a prison in our mind. And what we believe or cognize in our minds is manifested in our reality because of the actions, the physical actions we take or steps we make based on what we believe. And so, what I have come to understand is that this is a consciousness farm, so to speak, a place for the growth of the soul. And the soul has the power to make choices based on what is best for us, individual humans, and the planet, if we would allow it. But what happens is we get trapped, tripped up, or tricked by the physicality in this realm, which is what people have been trying to tell us to avoid. Don't drink alcohol, don't do these things, because you will fall into that and you get tripped up and you forget who you are and you spin around in that prison for a little bit. Once you wake up from it, then you realize, oh, okay, I have power to say no, I can resist these influences. And then you make different choices. You allow the soul to grow enough to where it can choose the choices that is best to bring light to this darkened planet.
I have a question for Dawn. Can you recall what you said about missing the mark? Something, some kind of breakthrough.
Oh, I think I was saying that trying to prevent sin is causing the problem, something like that. Trying to figure out how to stop sin is causing the missing of the mark, something like that. I can't remember. It just came out of me.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to
Something
listen
like that.
to it.
Let's rewind and listen.
Yeah, do it.
Oh, maybe I can get on
Yeah.
the YouTube channel that's live, that's showing this, and then I just go back in time and listen
Yes.
on the other phone.
Welcome back, Rami.
Oh, there it is, live. Maybe there'll be some background. Oh,
Now,
oh,
Dom,
that's
I was
still
going to
like,
ask you, Dominic, about when you talk about when you say things about, well, did you cause yourself to um did you cause your body to digest food, and did you are you making yourself sleep? All of those things that you talk about when people say, like when they're growing their child or raising a child, and you point at, well, you're not raising that child because you're not making that person function, that body function. Why do you look at it that way? Why do you use the word raising in respect to bodily functions that happen regularly?
Well, first, Don, thank you very much. I think you gave me a better insight on what we call the mind, and that maybe where our thoughts are, or the thoughts, I don't know if there are thoughts. And there could be maybe how does I use the word prison? What happens is I inquire about certain things, and I might come across harsh, but it is a question. So who taught us how to breathe? Now, it's like I've asked before, what are thoughts? And it came to me by another gentleman. It's the language of consciousness. It resonated with me, doesn't mean it resonates with others. So when I eat my food based on my likes and dislikes, I have inquiries. Who does the processing? It's like me when I heard a long time ago people say that you need to drink water after 3 days. Well, I've done 3 10 days experiments to see if I can go without drinking water for 10 days. And after the end of the 3rd day, my body still wanted water. So I did make my discovery there's its own intelligence. Now, when I say the body's a prison, it's because I've heard other people say it's a prison. Other people think it's a place to learn something. Now, I will put my word mine, and this is where I get myself skewed. But I'm glad I did it. I did say that. I'm not saying I did it consciously, because you gave it an explanation. I value the concept of the mind, man, mind, meant, because sin could be all in the mind, not the brain, but in the mind. The temptation, when we have thoughts, what are good behaviors? Are we talking about good acts or good behaviors? Can you alter a person's behavior with physical constraint opposed to with thoughts? So we have this ideal, anyway, when I hear it, that humans, when I say human, us, we're in the form human, that we raise our kids, where for me, something inside says it clearly doesn't show that. If I had to spend time focusing on every breath, whoever I think I am, I would fail at it. So how would I think my mom or my dad could? This is not me degrading them. It's putting it in discernment, in my interpretation, a better maybe categorizing of things. When I go to sleep, who runs my body? When I'm hearing you guys, who runs my liquids? When I eat upside down, why does the food still travel? Those are inquiries. Not to say I'm going to have answers, but it usually reveals to me, for some people, they think they know, which is fine. I'm the seeker, I'm the fool. I like to inquire about things. Other people, if they think they know a lot, they're the idiots. Because even if you do know, let's say we do know some things, where's the discernment? It's like a child that finally looks at the parent's mouth and say, Dad, where does words come from? And they look at the mouth, but where does it really come from? I don't know, son. Maybe we can start going inwards.
I have,
go ahead.
I have evidence. No, I would like for you to listen to what happened some 15 minutes ago. Let's see.
Hence, missing the mark is to stop trying to prevent missing the mark.
Let's see. There was a breakthrough. The way to prevent missing the mark is to stop trying to prevent missing the mark.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Stop.
There's something wrong with the way to prevent missing the mark is to stop preventing missing the mark. Maybe there's something right about it. Okay, so we are aware of missing the mark, so we try to prevent it. What does that mean? Can you give me an example?
Yes. An example is I have a good one. I keep waking up in the middle of the night. My brain I become aware that there is some conversation going on. And I'm like, why am I awake? And what conversation was happening? There's like a dialogue, this conversation going on in my head, and I wake up to it and I'm aware of it. I can see that there's a conversation, but the conversation is with who? So I'm like, I'm going to stop that. I need to stop waking up and having this whole situation happen. So what I do is I try to take some drugs, and I need to make sure I stay to sleep. And so I take some medication, and then I'll go to bed early, or I'll stay up super late. And that way I can all of that trying, all of that effort to do something different, to try to stop something that is happening without effort, causes me to focus on something that's not even the point. It's not even important.
Oh,
I am making a problem out of something that happens instead of accepting and allowing that, oh, okay, I'm awake for this time and there's no problem with it. I'm just awake.
so you woke up to a you were having a dream and you woke up and you were aware of the dream and it had a conversation and and you evaluated, you judged it, and maybe you determined that it is a sin to have that conversation. So you went and figured out what to do about it. Maybe take some drugs or something.
There's a word
Yeah.
that I don't.
Go ahead, Tom.
I was gonna say, there's a word that's also used, like the word repent. Repent can also mean change. So when somebody has fallen, they can repent, they can change their ways. So there's learning, there's always learning to be done. If somebody's, we'll use the word, missed the mark, like if a whole bunch of people are following a particular dogma, there's a good chance there's quite a few people that are in there because they've been conditioned, they've missed the mark. Because not everybody can do the exact same things, let alone be the same thing. So that could be another way of looking at the word mismark, misleading. The concept of misleading is you're supposed to lead the vessel, not allow others to lead you. Hence why mislead or misinformation. You're missing it. You know, there is information, but you could be missing it. It wasn't designed for you. Again, that's the ego playing this game. We're using the word that they coined, ego, the self, the program. That's all I call it. It's the program. It'd be like me getting mad at Siri. No, it's just a program. It's just everything else. Siri, not intentionally, is revealing that I have those types of emotions, energy and motion. Senses are emotions, thinking, reason. Those are all energy and motion. And with energy and motion, you could manipulate them with sound, frequency. That's where language comes in. There's frequency in that. Thought has its own frequency, but you know, that's just me going on because people were waiting for a group of people to create a new dogma, and then generations later, they're going to aimlessly follow it without questioning it. This is why traditions usually die, because people don't question them. Why do we have this tradition? What are the nuts and bolts to it? I want to do the math equation over and over again, different ways, so I can realize for myself, how does it benefit me? Now, when people say us, now you're missing the mark. You're living in that vessel. You're not living in other people's vessels.
Hi, Joel.
Good morning.
Rami, did you want to talk to us about the question of the day since Joel's here?
What's the question of the day?
And can questioning be a form of trying to prevent the missing of the mark? So when one forms a question, one is aware of missing the mark. So one forms a question or a problem to be solved. So could that be the problem? Trying to formulate problems and trying to solve them?
Problem, reaction, solution. That's exactly what happens in our world. There's people walking around complaining about it. That's what our government does. It creates a problem. We react to it, or they create the reaction, and then they create the solution. But that's what we do
Listen
every
to the
day,
word.
all day.
Listen to the word reaction.
Yes.
There's action and there's reaction. We are aware of an action that we identify as having missed the mark. So we act on it again. We go and see, oh, this was a sin. Let's do something about it. So there's where the problem, maybe that produces, embeds it further into our mind. Or
Exactly.
it makes it
Because
into a habit.
it makes it into something for you to
Mm.
prevent, and it shifts your focus, wrong focus, on this particular thing, like alcohol. Alcohol is the problem. I'm not trying to say that there are people that should be, that shouldn't have an issue with alcohol. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm pointing at is that in my church, when I was growing up, it very much, I believe, a cult. But that particular church had all of these rules that had nothing to do with the mark. As a matter of fact, whatever that church was teaching, I did not hear anything about the mind. Not at all. It was teaching about there's a God that you need to be afraid of, and you better not lie, cheat, steal, or wear pants if you're a woman, or jewelry or makeup. And you have to have your elbows covered. You can't show your knees. You better not show your toes. What does all that have to do with anything? And so if you can imagine, here you are, and my mother, I watched her go through this because she was always afraid of somebody catching her committing a sin. What was the sin? Oh, she bought this beautiful pair of shoes, but the toes were showing. And if somebody caught her wearing those, then she would be caught doing a sin. And so her whole focus was on, oh, I can't be caught wearing these shoes. And then they created other things to make it even more nonsensical. Like when you answer the telephone, you can't say the word hello. You can't say hello. Why not? It's a sin. Woo! So you better not say the word hello. You can see how this becomes very insane as it builds and as you find and create other issues to fix so that you can be on the right path. But being on the right path has nothing to do with anything physical. It has to do with the mind, the state of consciousness in the mind.
So jealousy is a form of reaction. Couldn't you say? Or couldn't I say? Or like, for example, the jealousy that caused the reaction of the incident with Cain and Abel, two brothers, and one was favored over the other. So the one that was less favored became jealous. So he did away with that object of jealousy. He reacted to the problem that was in his mind. Something like that. Now, what about the first sin? Wasn't the first sin Eve eating is disobeying to become like that God that instituted that rule, breaking the rules? Breaking the rules. What is it to break the rules? Why would we want to break the rules? Is that also caused by jealousy? Maybe wanting to be in power?
I don't personally believe that there's a problem with being in power. What is the problem is that it's the mind. They say absolute power corrupts absolutely. Why? Because it's a position that comes with so much control over others that it would be difficult for consciousness to exist there without an extreme amount of effort, because the physical material world, the duality that exists here, when you're in that kind of position, it's hard for you to pull yourself away from the temptations that come along with it. And so I think that it's not a problem to be in power. It's not a problem to have money and to have a lot of money. That's not the issue. It's that state of mind that goes along with it, if that makes sense.
Well, I guess for some humans, if they have those ponderings where would you want to live without rules? Forget about rulers. Would you want to live without rules? And then if you do, can we have that on Earth? You know, like somebody could say, okay, I'm no longer going to live with humans, but aren't the people can use the word governed, are the trees in the body of water being ruled? You know, in the suppose with the Garden of Eden, whatever the name of that garden was, because it was east of Eden, whoever this Lord God says, do not eat of it. Was that a rule? Was that a request? Was it a clever request? You know, as they were able to eat freely, but were they free? Don't know. We're talking about the story. Now we look at humanity here. Can we live without anarchy? Can we live in anarchy without rulers? Now people miscue and they think it's chaos. No, you can have chaos in any ism. We have chaos in democracy. We have chaos in communism. But can we? We still live under some things in some countries, monarchy. You know, royal people are allowed to have, they make the rules. You know, so if they make the rules and we don't follow it, would we be classified as missing the mark? That would open the question, if you're going backwards, well, who's the ones permitted to make the rules? And then once you realize your body has rules, not everybody is born with 6 fingers. I mean, sorry, 5 fingers and a thumb. Most people are born with 4 fingers and a thumb. So there might be even rules when it comes to nature. We're part of nature in the sense that our human form. You know, when people say that we come from apes, but meanwhile, so we mutated the birthing process. You know, it's no different when people say writing or reading. I said, so we were born to read and write as soon as we were born? No, we have the capacity. No different, we have the capacity to learn many languages, and some of us do learn many languages if you're factoring in colors, body language, numbers. Those are all languages. But to think that humans evolved while we got conditioned without deviating, because I know we're talking about the word sin, miss the mark. I still, you know, I've heard certain occultists talk about it. Truth is an energy. Where there's two, you'll find me, kind of ideal. But it's usually the brain that gets caught up. Anyway.
Interesting comments there, Rami and Joel, in the chat.
Then how does Timothy get into this?
Timothy was, Paul was Timothy's mentor. He wrote 2 or 3 letters to him. Timothy was a young pastor. He was the one who said, do not, I think Paul, in one of the letters said, don't let youth be something that stops you from speaking.
So the words found in a book that Paul wrote to Timothy.
A letter, couple letters, 2 or 3 of them, yeah.
And who's NRSV?
Oh, New Revised, let me see, which one is it? New Revised Standard Version. I actually prefer the Revised Standard Version that came out in the 1960s. I find that for some reason clearer than the NRSV, but that just happens to be where the one that the author who quoted that line in the Wikipedia article to the Oren
Make it go away.
prayer had used. Oren's, let me go ahead and paste where I got it from.
Hey,
But I may have to disappear again because my wife
he
hates
hasn't went away yet.
Dom's voice and will reset the internet whenever she detects I'm part of this call.
Yeah, it's not went away yet.
I know.
Therefore, you must go away.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to pop out again.
Bye.
Aw, Bye, Rami.
So reaction.
I'm having a little trouble keeping track of what the subject is.
Oh, the subject was inspired by Rami when he
That's
was
that's an evaluation or description of the subject. But what is the subject that you're trying to talk about? I've been listening for 10 or 15 minutes now, and I'm not any closer to understanding what it is that we're trying to dance around. I'd like to dance, but I just don't know what it is.
But Joel, are
and,
you wearing your shit?
s-
Are you wearing your shit kickers, Joel? You can't dance without shit kickers.
No, I'm actually barefoot at the moment.
well, I call this episode sinning. Sinning?
Sinning.
Sinning. That is a process of sin. Now, what is sinning versus what is sin? It's like it's a noun, but sinning is a verb. So there's continually evolving action and reaction going on. And you can see it in the global capitalism that's taken over the world and is taking on values and destroying them. And then people are reacting to it. Like, say, this value that we have, family values, or whatever kind of value, but global capitalism is erasing these values so that it frees up the market and commoditizes things for sale that will replace the value so that we end up with a valueless society, a valueless global society. Everything is totally cheap and free. What do you think about that?
Well,
Well, I thought we were talking about sinning and missing the mark. And what does that mean? And
Yes.
Rami's original question was about does sinning, oh, I had it right on the tip of my tongue. Let me just go back here and read it real quick.
Sin destroy faith or something like that. The value
Yeah,
of faith,
the virtue of faith.
the
The
virtue of
sin
faith.
destroy the virtue of faith. If you God, the way Rami said it was so good. Let me just read it real quick if you'll allow me a moment. I'm just going to pull it up real quick. It's really good. Okay, it says, is it possible to sin against the virtue of faith?
Mhm.
Is it possible to sin against the virtue of faith? And
is that the question that you're trying to talk about?
well, that's what started. That was the question that started it. And our we ended up, becoming focused on the word sin and then missing the mark coming out of sin, what the meaning of sin is. And then it just, brought us to when you came in. You were listening to us still talking about sinning and missing the
And the
mark and how to stop it.
and and Don looked at what causes a sin to escalate, to go into positive feedback. Like, so when we notice that we're sinning or doing something, or something is happening that we don't like, and we try to fix it, we cause more problems. Like when like, say, maybe overeating. No, No, I say just being hungry, and then we eat real fast, and we don't give it time for the signal to indicate that we're full, and so that hunger ceases. So we eat real fast, and we still feel hungry, so we eat more and more and more. But if we uh, ate slower, and then the signal indicating that we're satisfied would show up, and we would stop eating, and then we wouldn't overeat, and we wouldn't get fat. So
Well,
we have the sin of being hungry, and so we're fixing it by eating, but we're so excited about that we just keep eating faster and faster.
well,
Can I
no,
ask what
Hiram,
sin means?
Hiro asked the question, how can we prevent missing the mark? How can we prevent sinning? So before you came, Dom, me and Hiro had given our own opinions of what the word sin means, and the word missing the mark seemed to resonate. So that's why that was what we were all
Mm,
saying. But what Hiro is referring to is his question about is there something we can do to prevent missing the mark or sinning?
mm.
Okay, we're running ahead of me. I'm sorry, I'm still early here, but have we determined that sin is something that we all have an agreed definition of?
Now we're just exploring some common phrases that point to it. I don't know if we will ever determine a solid definition. Maybe we could look it up in a dictionary or on Google.
Basically, we're all talking about different things when we use the word sin, but we're trying to talk together about it, or are we all giving each other a forum for expositing our
Mm,
thoughts about the word sin?
mm. Yes, we're exploring at this time. We haven't focused. So we're failing on finding sin. So we're missing the mark on missing the mark. We need
Well, for
to.
me, I did not feel like I did not feel like we had a disparity on the word sin, that we have different definitions of the word sin. That's not how I felt. So I
It,
feel like the conversation that, and I felt like Dom and I were using the same terminology as well. So our conversation continued, and then we were questioning each other, having questions and then answering them. But I don't believe the focus on the meaning of the word sin came up, because I believe we collectively accepted a meaning that we all seem to be using right now. It's more of
Ooh,
what we need to do, if anything, about sin. Do we need to be doing anything about it?
mm. Oh, and Rami shared mm, in the chat, was it? Let's see. At 8:07, here's the thread, by the way, which inspired the question of the day. And so it goes to a Friday. Yale Wang says, do you agree with these two statements by a Lutheran theologian? There, he has two theses. There's one thesis, I could paraphrase it, that it says that when we sin, we are, I guess you could say it in briefly, that we're breaking the law, the rules. And then the other thesis is that what is it like? Hmm, hmm, something else that I couldn't quite get, but it's saying that Jesus told his disciples to give up their family and follow him or something like that. And then if and then mm, and then something about hypocrisy. But if you go to in the chat room and open that link from 807 where Rami, oh maybe what, be able to see it. So maybe I could share it. Let's see if I can share it using the share button. Let's see. Share. Let's see. Oh, I got different things that I could share. Share whiteboard. Hmm. Hmm. Oh man, I got it. I got an idea. I'll take a picture of it. Maybe. No, that won't work. Hmm.
I think Joel's
Oh, maybe.
asking questions here in the chat. I
Oh,
think
I know.
Joel's trying to bring us back to the question about, that Rami. Let me go back and read.
There's the link.
Uh-huh.
Can you see that link? Oh, but it requires Facebook. Maybe some people are not into Facebook. Oh, so maybe I could copy and paste it. Let's see if I can copy and paste.
Yes.
Oh, I copied it. So then I go in the chat and paste it. There. So there's two theses. Two theses. Thesi? Loss of faith over any intentional sin. Oh, that's suggesting that when you sin, you lose your faith. That doing something contrary to God's word.
Well, for me,
Another
faith,
thesis.
when I was growing up, faith was described from the old King James Version of the Bible, which was faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But the use of those words or the way those words are aligned can be confusing for people. But I think a good way to describe faith is belief in something without evidence of its existence.
Oh, something. It's
I don't know how to host anything. Oh, there. I'm glad you're back, Ira.
I got kicked out and now I'm back in. What is evidence of its existence, of something's existence? Is it through the senses? They could be deceptive. What about
I think it's a little limitation. I know.
or
Closely
indirect evidence of its existence? Like when the sun goes comes out of the horizon into the dawn, and then in the sunset it disappears. We can assume that the sun is still there. It's going behind the earth. Actually, the earth is moving around the sun, and it gives us the impression that the sun pops up in the horizon and then it goes back in on the other side. But then we assume maybe went to sleep, the sun went to sleep or what. We imagine what it's doing. But we have evidence now through exploring outer space that the sun is always there and this earth is rotating and all that. So we have evidence. So we have so we don't need to have faith in the sun because we have evidence. Is that what? Believing in something without evidence? What is it? What are some things that we believe without evidence?
Joel?
I try not to believe in very much without evidence.
Hmm. Oh, so you try not to believe in things without evidence.
Mhm.
So you believe in things that you have evidence.
Then it wouldn't be a belief then, Jaro.
Oh,
Joel, do you mean physical evidence?
Whatever is evidence appropriate for the belief.
Ah,
That's the whole construct. That's the whole idea of science.
Yeah, and reason.
Yes, Joel's right on it. So the religious view is you tell a person a story, whether or not that exists or not, would be a belief. So now, if a person wants to use reason, like Joel's saying, now it's about knowing. Even knowing has its limitations because people aren't going to understand the essence to all that information. So now, in that case, if people are talking about, we were talking earlier, and me and Joel were posting things here about, meaning of faith. For a person that values state or in this case, science, that's out the door. Faith is out the door. Now, if you're a chemist or a science and you're trying to break down elements, you can have some hope on maybe wanting some of the results, but then you still have to take into what actually does happen. So they're more of a material person. So now, once again, based on what? Loyalty to a God? People can acknowledge, well, there is things out there. The sky, the sun, and the moon. We can't really explain it. Now, people will regurgitate what somebody else told them, and now we're back to a belief. You have to still do your own investigation if you value the material. And it's a struggle for a lot of people because even the religious kind of view and all that, it's religious. What is the meaning of sin? An offense against religious or moral laws, not religion, but their laws, and who made those laws. And then it says an action that is for, what is it called? I don't even know what it is. Action is felt to a highly reprehensible. So a person that follows religion but yet joins state with military, they're going to have a conflict now, because if they harm another human being, you've offended moral laws, and religion shall not kill. This is where people want their cake and eat it. So if we're going to have a conversation about faith, then you have to read the room. Well, who here are science? Who values science over the unknown? This is where people use the word metaphysical. That's a different conversation. And if a person knows how to go in and out of all of that, now you have discernment, you have wisdom, because that's why I say knowledge has its limitations. Just because you can touch an object over and over again does not mean we understand what it is. And let alone the person says, but I'm calling it. I said, so then where's the unknown? Where's the words that you've given to it? I don't know. It's like looking in a mirror and wondering, where do the words come from? We take it for granted. It's like looking at the painting and then you finally see the picture. But who made the picture? And for what intent was it? So we can see the picture within it, or that we can see something in a corner? Why do books in squares? This is where religious people, when they get involved in this kind of stuff, it's skewed because they got to learn how to read, and then they got to follow these books. Well, who gave us the concept of reading? Because there was something way before the Bible. I'm just using reason when I'm talking with its meanings. What is faith? What is hope? And again, this has to do with a lot of personal investigation for oneself. By hearing other people's story, I still have to investigate it for myself. If I'm capable, I wouldn't be able. Go ahead.
Sorry, Dom.
No, go ahead.
Let me see if I can give you a practical, real life example of maybe what we're talking about, because I must confess I'm still confused. So I'm supposed to meet a gentleman today. I think he's a gentleman. I use the word gentleman generously, but that's been my assessment, because in my experience of him, and I've only met him on one Zoom call, a group I go to on Thursday morning with slightly different focus, and it's a more homogeneous group, bunch of old guys, mainly. Sometimes we get some younger people. And he arrived from Mexico. His daughter is here now finishing her studies for something or other. And we're supposed to meet today for a coffee. And I'm debating, Mexico, drug running, blah, blah, blah. How do I know who this guy is really? I've never met him. I've seen him on, my sense of him is that he's not any of those things, but still in the back of my mind, I don't have absolute faith. The doubt exists that maybe I'm getting involved with a person who could be some kind of a problem. He's traveling here and there, and I was debating, would it be offensive if I showed him all I know is his name is Alberto, and he speaks Spanish and he speaks English quite well, not perfectly. His few emails to me are a little the way you might expect someone who's not a native English speaker, but his oral English is very comprehensible, to me anyway. So I don't think we'll have any problem conversing. And he's agreed to meet at whatever subway stop I choose. So I told him we'd meet at Finch West and have a coffee, and I could talk about Canada, and he could tell me about Mexico, and his family is moving here. So my question is it offensive to sin or moral virtues or whatever the words are, if I were to ask him, if I show him my ID and ask him if I could see his ID, to see if there's something that's got his picture on it that looks like the name, that also includes the name Alberto. So I know that, that's probably who he is. I'm meeting him in an unknown place, a subway station. I'm even worried about how we'll find each other at the subway station if he even shows up.
Is this a conduct of business, Joel?
No, it's just social. He's moving to Canada. He would be the first person from Mexico to play Vinci if he plays. And
so are you meeting him to play Vinci?
Maybe.
Okay, so that could be business, and there's rules of conduct when it comes to business. If we're just talking about a random person, you have to have some sort of trust within oneself that you can handle whatever circumstances. If not, then don't socialize. But if it's for rules of business, there is. Now, you could lead by saying, okay, I am weary. Then you show your identification, and you can ask, not demand, if he would reciprocate. If he doesn't, then you know where you stand, meaning that I don't trust my situation. I don't trust. It doesn't mean you don't trust him. He just might say, I have different values. There's people that are in the Asian community, they'll give you a really expensive card. And if you accept it, you better do business with them, because they spend lots of money on those cards. In America, North America, it's a very sloppy way of presenting each other. But if you're doing business with them, only you would know that. So to ask other people, the only person you're going to get that information from is from him. Now, I think you're trying to tie this all up. Is it faith? No, it's not faith.
So if it's not, is trust faith? So there's another human being that I'm meeting for the first time in person.
Mhm.
I have met him. I know him less well than I think I know any of you here, but we're about to move from the, shall I call it, the semi-metaphysical world to the physical world, where I'll actually be able to shake his hand or share a coffee with him. And that requires more trust. I mean, if things happen on this meeting, I click close and that's the end of it.
Faith can carry you so far, but faith is always about trusting in the unknown that you're never going to see. Hope is expectations, literally, for the positive outcome. That's where a person says they lean towards their more times not their likes. So they're going to resist the opposite. Trust is in trust in oneself. Whatever occurs, you'll be able to deal with it, whatever it is. Think about Sinead O'Connor with her song. So in this case, you're meeting a person, because if not, then what you're trying to do, Joel, whether you know it or not, you're trying to control the situation. So he could actually not trust you because you're too busy trying to control the outcome. I don't know who you are. Well, I don't know who you are. Why are you here? That's a conversation that people should have way before they even meet each other, especially in an era of technology. You know, it's like a guy saying to me, Dom, we're going to negotiate a price. Yeah, better do it now. Because if you come to my door and now you like it and say, well, can we negotiate the price? I said, we got to know the rules. What are your rules and what are mine? That's what I'm saying. When it comes to business, it's a different game. And when people are religious, they skew it because commerce trumps all dogmas. Science would not exist without commerce. Religion is based on commerce, selling ideals. Same with state. I love it when atheists go on. I said, you guys are still children. State is also another form of dogmas. And you have to be sold the ideal. Our democracy is better than your communism. Our religion is better than your religion. Holy fuck, it's a bunch of children. And I'm acting like an idiot by talking that way. You know, you get a whole bunch of people, I was Jewish. I don't believe in being Jewish anymore. So then what do you believe? Because you should know. We live in a world where most people don't know what's in other parts of the world. Now, I can say, okay, well, I saw pictures of Australia. I can say I know, but I don't have discernment, meaning that somebody said, Don, but have you ever lived there? Well, no, I can only know. I got to go there with my senses. Some people might turn around and say, Don, this has no interest to me. I said, okay, that's fine. So in this particular case, Joel, if I had a guess, if you were introducing that to me, I was thinking, okay, well, lead. And then if you lead, I would like to think, did you do it willingly? Well, yeah. So then shouldn't I have the same choice? Now, if you're hesitant or you're speculating or whatever, then I would have to ask, okay, so what part are we talking about? You've been burnt before? What part have you been burnt? This is where we get into this racist stuff. I think even Don was talking about it. We're a human race. And then we divide ourselves by saying, well, they're different, they're different. No, we're still one race. It's our feelings that get caught up. And when I say feelings, I'm not talking about developed feelings. I'm talking about underdeveloped feelings. Same with logic. A lot of people are underdeveloped in their logic. Because if they were, then we should all be able to create a car, understand how to divide elements. We don't. So we believe, but we still know. We believe there's somebody else creating the internet, but we do know. We do know. We see it. Doesn't mean I necessarily understand how all these boards work. A guy like person like Jaro, he does the programming. Doesn't necessarily he's actually out there in his house making the boards. And if he does, then I would have to ask a whole bunch of questions like me talking to a surgeon, but I would be asking it out of sincerity because I wouldn't really understand all the nuts and bolts, but I might be cross-relate with some of my own crafts. Don, I guess trust can equal faith, or trust maybe encompasses all those things.
What about belief? What is the difference between belief and faith?
Jaro, if I've never met a guy like Socrates or Jesus or Muhammad, I can only believe that the stories that I've been heard, that it did or didn't exist. If I met any of these characters, now I would know, but I wouldn't have discernment on their character unless I started asking questions. So in a way, Joel's asking, you're allowed to ask questions, but are you asking questions for the benefit of, let's say it was a business transaction or for your own personal feelings?
So faith,
I believe belief is faith. It's the same thing, but it's a different word, and it has to do with degrees. It's what we do. We humans, we put different degrees on it. So it's like, well, I'm beyond belief. I'm at faith. I don't believe it. I have faith that it exists, but it's just words. And when we do that, we cause parsing, we cause duality, splitting. But it really doesn't matter what degree someone has belief in. They're working through it in themselves. But I do believe that belief, trust, faith are talking about the same thing.
what if belief is a set of stories to help produce faith in that following the the moral values will lead to a better life. Having faith or trust that these characters have something to impart, even though we can't see them, or we hear about them, so we have some belief in them, and then maybe they know better, they're wiser, so then we develop trust after we have some belief, and then we have trust in their guidance and knowledge.
Jaro, people play the I Ching, they do tarot cards, they do dices, they do all kinds of stuff. People can have, we'll say, faith in it, but they're also going to confirm it in a shorter period of time with confirmation, so they would know, did I get the results that I asked for? Hence, inquire, prayer. Whether it's for yourself or for others. If it's for yourself, you'll probably see the results, or you'll at least question, is there such thing as energy for praying? Other people might pray for the betterment of humanity. But again, would we be able to see that big scope? There's a little bit of faith in, like Don even said, trust. It can equal faith, but trust could also equal beliefs. Trust could equal knowledge. It's each individual person how they want to apply it. Again, we're just playing with words. You know, if we were also all of a sudden zapped in and we're all speaking Chinese, Mandarin or Cantonese or Hebrew, we might perceive it differently.
So belief is temporary knowledge or pseudo knowledge based on hearsay? No, based on scriptures or oral tradition, and so we believe it without evidence, without scientific evidence, without reasoning, but we have to go with it in order to get to some moral lessons that will lead us to preventing us from missing the mark.
We have words like works
You like that?
without action, or knowledge without applied knowledge. So if a person sets out that they want an action to be done, and then they choose to accumulate information, knowledge, then they're ultimately going to apply it. You know, I like to idealize a lot of ideals. Doesn't mean I'm trying to narrow it down so I can apply it. You know, the book that we read, I don't care what kind of book it is, it's just knowledge. It can motivate you to apply it. This is why when we start worshiping things, people might say, don't worship any carved images. Well, then what do you think the Bible is, or the Quran? Now, I don't know if the Quran actually states it to not, follow, carved images. Same with the teachings of Bhagavad or Buddhism teachings. But the biblical story, yeah, it teaches that. So something that's carven, in this case, written work, don't worship it. Don't work for it. Let it work for you, in the sense that love thy neighbor as thyself. Then try to apply what is the neighbor. Especially when you come to the awareness that you never leave outside. You're probably never outside of your body. So who's your neighbor? Your vessel. We all have been given a temple. But yet most of us think a temple is when you go into a man-made structure. Well, we're sitting outside of a creator's temple, both the outside world and the vessel that we're in. As Jesus would say, unless you become like children again, it's the intellect that becomes this adult and thinking, I'm going to figure out the Bible. Okay, if that works for you, who am I to tell you otherwise?
Okay, guys, I'm gonna have to leave you now. I've lost faith. I've gotta go and have a shave and a shower and see if I can find it again. before I meet with Alberto.
Enjoy yourself, Joel.
And I'm gonna
Bye,
see.
Joel. Have fun.
So long, guys. Stay
Bye.
safe.
Yes, sir.
May you find your religion.
If God doesn't love you, I do.
Oh, thank you for loving me. I feel loved. Saying I love you, does that develop faith in their they tricking us?
If I could, I wanted to go back to Rami's question. If I can just read it again. Is it possible to sin against the virtue of faith? And I think the answer is yes, but it's within a particular person, each person. If you believe that something you do would sin against the concept of faith within you, then that's what it is. And then it now becomes an obstacle for you to overcome. It becomes something that you have to resolve because now you're split. Now there's a problem within you. And when you can resolve that problem by becoming one again, meaning there is no problem, everything is as it should be, then that can be resolved. And within me, that concept does not exist. I don't use sin in that way.
Could you repeat the question that Rami stated in the meetup, in discussion or conversation that he posted?
Is it possible to sin against the virtue of faith?
What does it mean to sin against? Is it possible to sin for? Maybe you could sin as in break a rule for faith, for the virtue of faith. Like maybe you could sin in by murdering someone that is about to kill, that is about to kill you and your family. So you have sinned in the thou shalt not kill, but you sinned for the virtue of faith because now you're still alive. And so faith can continue within you.
So there's consequentialist ethics, and then there's deontological ethics.
Ooh,
Yes. And the consequential, you're saying, well, that guy, let's say he has a weapon with multiple bullets, and I have a weapon, and I have bullets. I'm using guns as the weapon example, obviously. So either I can, it becomes almost a trolley car question, right? I can shoot that person and live with the consequences of having broken the commandment, thou shalt not kill,
No,
in
because
order
you
so
can
that the
shoot it
other
out.
doesn't shoot, let's say, 7 other people.
Bobby, you can shoot it
That would
out.
be an example of consequential. Yes, you can shoot without killing. In the movies, in
No.
Gunsmoke, for instance, they'll shoot the gun out of the person's hand. But when you go to learn firearms training, they don't say don't go for the fancy stuff. Aim for the middle of the chest is what they'll train you to do.
Bobby, you can shoot and not kill. I'm a non-walking example of that problem.
Yes, you can shoot and not kill. That's again a very likely capability.
Non-walking example of that.
Right. My wife could walk prior to a thief coming into her home when she was 6 years old or 5 years old. She was 5. A thief came into the house and said, "Give me all the money out of your purse." to her mother, who did not understand what he was saying because her mother only spoke Spanish. And he was screaming, give all the money out of your purse or I'll shoot the girl. Again, her mother didn't know what he was talking about. He shot the girl and ran off. And this was the second time he had done this, because he had done it to another family prior. The guy is serving multiple life sentences here in the state of Florida, by the way.
Wow.
She woke up. That happened when she was 5. She woke up when she was 6 out of a coma, tried to get out of bed and fell flat on her face, because to this day, she still has a 38 slug lodged in one of the vertebrae pressed up against her spinal cord. Inoperable, because the doctors fear if they were to attempt to remove it, they would kill her.
Wow.
And that shaped her life. Our life.
Mm.
But then I don't even know how to approach the question from the deontological, which is to say from the absolute truth perspective. And you brought up a question about how does one know that they have faith in God? And you and I, Jairo, both have a friend named Yale, also from Canada, who's brought up a question in one of his posts. I've been trying to find it on and off throughout the last 2 hours. Wherein he states in the post that only God really knows who, if it's within the context of Christianity, who the Christians are. Christian is just a label that was attached to the set of believers by outside groups. Christos, it means like little Christ, meaning like it's been rubbed off. And oh my goodness.
Is this
No,
the
it's
post?
not that one. It was an earlier post.
No.
Earlier post. I'll find it eventually.
So consequentially, after you commit a sin, you have to live with it, but you have to evaluate before committing the sin, whether to sin or not, weigh out the consequences, the benefits.
And consider, let's take into,
cons-
I'm sorry,
And then the other one is ontological.
deontological, yeah.
The ontological.
I'm not, to be honest, I don't know what the difference between ontological and deontological are.
Ontological and what?
Deontological.
Deontological.
Maybe that
That's-
just means of, it's probably the French prefix of the,
That's a word.
oh, there's
Deontological.
a verses here. In ethics, what's the difference? I'm using Wikidiff.
Wiki what?
Wikidiff tells you the difference between 2 words.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
As the noun, as nouns, the difference between deontology and ontology is that deontology, between deontology and ontology is that deontology is the ethical study of duties, obligations, and rights with an approach focusing on the rightness or wrongness of actions themselves and not on the goodness or badness of the consequences of those actions, while ontology is a branch of metaphysics that addresses the nature or essential characteristics of being and of things that exist, the study of being qua being.
So deontological looks at the pros and cons of an action, maybe.
Not only in the Diff Wiki it says deontology is the ethical study of duties, obligations, and rights, with an approach focusing on the rightness or wrongness of actions themselves, not the goodness or badness of the consequences of those actions. Daniel Kahneman, when he wrote Fast and Slow Thinking, the research that went into that was actually funded by the Israeli military.
Whoa.
Yes. And if you're in the, let's say you're in the shooter situation where you're at a movie theater and someone pulls out a gun and starts shooting, and not just like in the air or randomly, but trying to pick off people. In that situation, it's your system one thinking. It's you don't have time to consider. Whatever your prior training has been, that's what's going to take place.
Mm. Imagine that. So you, in system one thinking, you're reacting. Oh,
Mhm.
that's reaction. That's an interesting word. Because in global capitalism, we have values and we are reacting to it by opposing the valueless global capitalism.
Or we're complying with it by purchasing things that allow us to have this conversation. That's what makes this, and C.J. Hopkins in his essay, the New Normal Left, and in other prior essays of his that I think I've shared with you, some of his writings. It's valueless. It decodes. DE as in un, as in strips. So it strips all values. What do you wind up with? A totalitarian system which strips all values. I think the closest literary example we have is perhaps Brave New World. I think the logical consequence too is that you wind up with people like the one of the leaders of the local free thought community here in Central Florida. At one point, she was saying that she had completely given up any thought, hope, or faith in such a thing as free will whatsoever. I know that her field is business.
Wow.
For her birthday this year on Facebook, I wished her to have, what I forget how I put it, but I basically expressed that I would hope that she would regain her free will.
Oh, wow. So
Right.
if one is aware that one has lost one's free will, how would one react to that loss? Is there a way to oppose one's actions or select artificially go for actions that are in opposition to the global capitalism in the hopes that one will recover one's free will, assuming that global capitalism has destroyed one's free will?
Well, I think you'll probably wind up destroying the person before you destroy the will.
We
One potential consequence of this scenario is that people simply either switch off or have switched off their minds, or at least their thinking in the field of, of the system too, of the consequentialism of the matter. And if you do that long enough, I think the natural result of that is depression. Because in such a scenario, you wind up with what is ultimately a meaningless world. A world devoid of any meaning whatsoever.
what was it you
Oh,
said?
Mhm.
Go ahead, Iro.
What you did you say that
Yeah, I'm saying that a valueless world would be the same as a meaningless world.
But I don't believe that just because someone shuts off the thought, that system that's constantly causing thoughts. In other words, if they are able to mute it, I don't think that it equates a meaningless world. I don't believe that if someone decides not to participate in politics and all these other things, I don't believe that they don't have value, or that they don't want for a different world or a better world. I don't believe that that's in a direct equation in my view. But and I am aware that there are people who have disconnected from our societies, meaning the way that they are disconnecting is they are not participating in any of the chaos that's causing problems for us. They participate in a different way. They participate with their being, the way they interact with other humans, the light that they shine. Some people believe that you have to have passion to the degree of aggression. There's a man that I listen to, I've been listening to for several years, and most recently he seemingly lost it, and so his followers are commenting on him because he is literally screaming on his videos that people need to participate, you need to get angry, you need to have passion. What is wrong with it? He's just, losing it and saying, if you don't do this, if you don't act like this, then you're nothing. You don't care about the earth. And I wonder what's the purpose of all of that energy. Just like worrying about something is not a direct relation to any result, that kind of a level of energy is not necessary to yield a positive result. We don't have to manifest wars in order to change our society. There's a different way.
In the chat for later is the different way. The Politics of Reason by Dan Sullivan. It was a talk that he gave in the 2018 annual conference of the Council of Georgists organizations, and I'll be right back.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Mm. Oh, can you hear this?
Can you hear what?
No.
Might get a strike for copying others' content, but if we're making commentary, it falls under fair use if you're referring to pulling up that video. I don't know if we want to do it together while we're in this session. Up to you guys.
Mm.
The full talk is an hour and 12 minutes, though. I don't know that people would necessarily want to do that for that long.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I put it on my playlist. I'll watch it later.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like
you
to
can-
listen to words while I work. Some people find that very strange, to be an accountant and I'm working numbers, constantly moving my fingers and my brain is focused. But yet
Yeah.
I can also listen to these dry words.
I get it.
today's April 15th, the last day, unless you get an extension.
April 18th this year.
Right.
Okay.
And yeah, you just do an extension. It's 6 months. They changed it to 6 months for everyone across the board now. So automatic 6 months.
Can you extend the extension to 6 decades, maybe?
That's a great question, Jairo.
Yes, you can. You can do
Especially
it.
if you're the federal government.
You can, yes, because they have. In
Or ask.
reality, you don't need an extension after 6 months. After that, you're just late. Good question.
The costs become much higher after that point, though.
The
Oh no,
consequences.
only the interest continues to accrue. And it's a
Ooh.
stupid low interest rate, actually, but the penalty is only the time penalty.
That's where they get you though. Yeah.
Oh,
Penalties and fines. Sometimes they'll try to say, well, you used your card 18 transactions instead of doing one for like a certain amount, then they'll hit you for 18 fines. Or at least
What?
try to. You haven't heard of this?
Use your card?
No, not your card, but let's say you've done a transaction and it's been deemed not within the what's defined as kosher within this year's or last year's tax code or the year's
Oh,
relevant.
a deductible? You mean a valid deductible expense?
Or it could have been a donation, or it could have been contribution. Yeah, any of the above. And there's a few other categories too. And there was a famous case I remember, and there was a ruling on it too, because the IRS was hitting the guy 18 times for something where he could have merely been fined one time.
Oh, they were penalizing him for each infraction.
Right.
Oh, I wouldn't spend my energy on worrying about those kinds of nonsensical things, because when you get to when you are dealing with a person who is actually, trying to gain the system, and everyone tries to gain the system, it's set up for you to try to gain it. It's for you to get the best out of it. But when someone does something egregious, or blatant, like, for example, I have some clients that try to convince me that, yeah, them buying these all-terrain vehicles is a business expense, and you're a home inspector. All you do is go to people's homes and inspect it and then walk out and leave. What do you need an ATV for? You're not inspecting a property like the land. You're just surveying the house. That's it.
Well, that's well, let's say they're not a home inspector, but what their job is actually evaluating real estate. The real estate could be 640 acres in the middle of Colorado or Nevada. So,
Yeah, but
there are
that's not what we're
innocent
talking-
cases.
Yeah, but what I'm
Valid.
trying to say, I'm not trying to bring up every possibility, but what I'm saying is when the offense is egregious, they may do multiple penalties like that to make a point. But I wouldn't spend my energy worrying about those things, because that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with things.
Let me give you a counter view. Have you read the 16th Amendment? That's the one in that's the amendment to the Constitution that states that the federal government can tax by just whatever way it decides. So my question, and this is a question that's been about for a very long time: why tax people based upon their incomes? You're actually disincentivizing generating income. And I think that we all suffer as a result of that decision, because you're cutting into the total size of the economic pie as a result.
What if it was a flat rate?
Well, you still have the same issue. You're just kind of, that was, look, even the primary proponent of the flat rate tax, who, by the way, also helped design the withholdings feature, that was the guy who did The Power of Choice. His name starts with M somewhere. Anyway, even he stated that the least bad tax is the old idea brought up by Henry George so many years ago. The idea of setting the public income upon the unimproved value of land. And then he went and gave his reasons for simplifying the tax code via a flat tax, which is what he and many libertarians after him have mostly advocated for. And I think partially that's a result of Murray Rothbard, if I'm saying his last name correctly, his influence. Yeah. Rothbard makes some points, but ultimately what you get in a Rothbardian system is all land taken over by a class of landlords. Because everything becomes privatized at that. You have almost a total loss, if not a total loss, in the commons. Whereas George's thesis is we make land common. And there's a few ways to do that. And I tend to favor Thomas Jefferson's way, which is by way of valuing the small landholder, because the small landholder is the greatest defense to liberty. So what I suggest we as a species do is take all the land in a given territory. It could be, let's say, a county, and all the people living upon it would have equal right. And this is sort of a pre-distribution. It's not a redistribution scheme. It's a pre-distribution scheme for all that's in the earth and all the elements that is of it, all the things, in other words, since all human beings are of equal moral worth, why not attach equal claim to land being an economic term referring to not just acreage or hectares, but the bauxite in the soil and the petroleum and the coal and the amount of sunshine that lands at a particular latitude, any and all the goods of particular physical aspects throughout time. For as long as the living live, why not attach the value of that to each individual human being conceived? Then you don't have territorial conflicts anymore. Then when you're in a business negotiation and someone wants to play a game of asymmetric warfare saying, well, I control all the jobs and you don't, therefore you'll work according to my wage, whatever I set it, that person could go, no, I don't think so. I think instead I'll just claim my 3 acres or whatever the amount is, depending upon the global human population at that time. I'll just take up vertical farming. Thank you very much. Live off my farm, sell the excesses, set profit, and keep all the profits, because my income isn't taxed and my sales aren't taxed in that system either. And if I decide I'm really good at this, I want to go beyond what my inheritance share is, then maybe I'll expand business and pay a little, I'll pay taxes for the amount beyond my inheritance share, and that would be the basis of revenue for the government.
Mhm.
You say that, Don, but when you look at the tax code and you consider what I've just stated, which I know seems like a completely foreign and alien thing, the thing I just stated is like 1/8,000th in size. So I was
No,
just
it
wondering.
doesn't sound foreign. No, it doesn't sound foreign. I think these are good ideas, but I believe that we created problems that we didn't need to create.
Certainly.
And we're trying to work through it and trying to figure out ways to make it better while using the same kind of a system. But it's the system that's the issue, in
Right.
my opinion. So you
How
have to get rid of it.
how did
I
we
have to tend to my
create
wife, and I'll be right back.
how did
Okay.
we create those problems?
I don't know. That takes some time to think about for those who want to go back and think about how we created those problems, because there is a saying that if you do not learn from the past, then you're doomed to um, recreate them in the future. But I think I can sum it up from my own perspective, which is we created the problems because we were not conscious. We were not collectively conscious, and we were not using what would benefit the total of us. Instead, we were focused on what would benefit a small minority. And we were, in some cases, some would say we were duped into some of these things because of promise of something that we valued. And some things that we might have valued would be security. They're constantly trying to tell us we need security from them. And what they are using is a very old force, the energy called fear. It's very powerful. And so that's where I could take us way back to where we started, which is it's all about the mind. Because you can create a prison of fear in your mind. And therefore, you got to have all of this security and you got to buy all this stuff to keep yourself secure. And you got to monitor it and you got to pay for it. And you got to do all these things when, for the majority of us on this planet, we remain safe for the most part. And then some will say, well, you remain safe because there's somebody protecting you. It could be. But I really believe that what we see physically is about what has gone on in our minds. So if we want to manifest a safe environment, then we have to believe, trust, have faith in safety collectively. And then we will not create the chaos that caused all of these rules upon rules upon rules upon rules. And as you can see how sick it's become, it's like the Smith in the Matrix, how he just me, and then over and over and over. Now you see that he created a virus himself. He is the virus. We are the virus because we keep creating more problems trying to fix a particular problem. Let's not make that problem a problem. Let's not make it a problem. It's not a problem. That's hard for many of us to conceive of because one could say, how can you there's there's people killing themselves because they're using this drug that's been laced. How can you not have a problem with that? It's very difficult. We really complicate things as humans.
Like,
Interesting.
like for example, I can't sleep,
Oh, dude.
so I take melatonin. But then I do that every night, and my ability to sleep
Your tail.
naturally
How's
weakens.
your tail?
So now I am dependent on melatonin.
Tail. Oh no, you. Oh no, we don't want to fall.
So maybe I'm addicted to melatonin in order to sleep. I created a
I
problem.
use melatonin too.
You're right, too.
But so melatonin works for you. When you take it, you sleep through the whole night, or do you wake up?
No, I actually don't use melatonin. That was just an example.
Oh, Ah. I say that nothing is a problem. It's not a problem that I don't sleep through the night. It's not a problem that I take melatonin, for example, to help me sleep. And it's not a problem that I take it every night. Nothing is a problem. Nothing needs to be fixed except our thoughts that there is a problem.
So if one is an alcoholic, there's no problem because trying to fix it would require rehab or something like that. Or how do you fix
Close the door.
alcoholism? Just
Steve Chalupa went
not
out.
drink. I guess that requires a strong commitment, like quitting smoking or quitting heroin. Oh, but then there's the body wanting it. If you're an alcoholic and stop drinking, then your body tremble. Maybe there's drugs for it.
There's not a non-zero chance of something going wrong by keeping the two of them out there.
Yeah, so your body will have the reactions or withdrawal symptoms to using
Mhm.
chemicals. That is what it is.
So, do you use system 1 thinking or system 2 thinking? Which thinking uses free will?
All of them.
Well, to the degree to which you freely signed up for that system 2 training, because sometimes you're not, I don't think system 1 by definition is a reactionary, it's a response. And when you join the military, for instance, and you go through basic, you're taught to shoot on command, you're taught to bayonet on command. Your free will is subsided into the will of your commanding officer.
No, your free will is subsided for pay.
Yeah, you're trading, right? In a way, well, go ahead, Stacy.
Your free will is subsided for pay. It's like any job.
Your free will is subsided for pay.
It's like any job.
So you're freely deciding to
Give up your free will for pay. That's
Well,
what you do in any job.
yeah, but you know, if you talk to a soldier, they'll tell you that
They've been trained.
if they've been trained correctly, they've been
trained.
trained not to obey all orders because there are such things as unlawful orders.
Mm.
Right. And that's from like you know, bottom rung.
Yes,
Even though my
but I
husband has
agree
never
with
had
her.
to go to military anything.
I just talk with folks who've been in the military, and both my grandfathers were Army.
Yes, but these military men, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, they are mind controlled. And that's what that's what happens. Like even me, I'm trained to be an accountant. So I've been trained so well to where I can look at a client's information and don't recall it. I mean, that's how trained I am, is that I just look at it just to get this done, but I do not recall it. I erase it because that's sensitive information. But anything else I look at, I recall it. You see, because I was indoctrinated, I was programmed, I was trained. This is how you look at it and do things. But in reality, your wife is correct that, yeah, there is a transaction that is occurring, and we give up our freedom of choice, our free will, for pay, for
Right.
things, for comforts. And then we complain that we don't have free will. But we do have free will. We just have to stop giving it over to other things that we believe is more valuable.
Go on, Stacy. You have more opinion on this.
Yes, everyone has free will, but they also have natural consequences.
Yeah, like facing God individually in the great white throne room,
That's not even.
or in the great separation
It's
between the
also
sheep and the
worldly
goats.
consequences,
True,
folks.
true.
You can
PTSD.
you can spend all your money on crack, but you're going to be addicted and broke.
There you go. Yep.
You're free to do it, but you're also going to be in jail too. And then you won't have so much free will after that. So, enjoy your day.
We keep searching for something outside of us to solve a problem that exists inside of us.
My problem solver is currently outside.
Hmm.
PTSD is solved by chihuahuas.
When do you know that you're acting on your free will? When
Great question.
Free will every day.
when there is a problem you're trying to overcome, and in the struggle to overcome it, you feel a sense of urgency, anxiety, a sense of I must get this done. But when there's nothing to be done, then there's no
When
free
there's nothing to be done, your mind will create something to be done.
Oh, that's a very good insight. I want to pull back and give the 10,000-foot view and address the nature of the meaning of the word will.
Mhm.
I will.
What is will? What is
I
the will
Will
to
is
have
the
a will?
male name for it,
Intention, the force of intention.
what your brain wants to do.
As I see it, will is
love
an
you.
attribute
I love
that is
you.
an attribute
I
that
love
comes as a
you.
consequence of us being created in the image of God. God willed the universe to exist, willed man to exist, created us in his own image. Therefore, we too have this sort of force that propels action.
Do animals have that?
Animals have instinct. Animals
Cats
feel
have free
hunger.
will.
I'm sorry?
Cats have free will, dogs are good.
Right, yeah, the difference between cats and dogs. Dogs are there to remind you how much God loves us, and cats are there to remind you that we're not in charge.
Well, I believe that animals have been evolving as well, and perhaps involving. And I have an animal that I'm witnessing make choices. I am watching her think about it and choose what she's going to do. And it is the opposite of what I was told it was for animals. That's not how I was told it worked for animals. And we are also aware that animals can be trained to give comfort to a human, which requires them to recognize, maybe it's based on an energetic level, recognize when a person is in distress so that they can bring comfort or aid. So I think, go ahead.
She was just mentioning the kind of animal that's been giving her aid since she was a little girl.
Very.
Oh, yes. So I think that there's a lot to this world, much, much, much more than we discuss or have been told. And additionally, the constant of change is what we need to focus on, is the fact that things change. We keep trying to make things this was working, so don't change it. It is going to change because there are different energies on this planet. Whenever new souls are incarnated into this earth, they bring with them different energies, different ideas, different plans. So things have to change because that is what this place is, a place of change. We keep focus on keeping things the same, but that's not the way. We need to look at and accept the change to come and interact with change on that level, in my opinion.
In your statement of attempting to prevent missing the mark, we react to it. And so that reaction is the attempt to prevent change.
Yes. Yes. Nice.
Is that a breakthrough?
I think so. Yeah.
Ding ding.
Ding
What,
ding.
what did he win?
Hyro, all you're worried about is what did you win?
I win. What's behind door number 1? So in our effort to have things be permanent, we try to preserve them. And when they depreciate in value,
Nice
we
word.
throw them away, but we keep them, we hoard them. So I have to go to my room and find things to throw away or give away. Then I'll have space to move around.
He makes all things new. Speaking of space to move around, remember Benjamin Forbes Griffith?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it Griffin? He would talk about the God of the gaps as the only possible remaining kind. When I think of the universe, and I think of just the space between the nucleus and the orbital shells, the electron orbital shells, and I consider that entire system, it's mostly gaps. And when you look at cosmology, they speak of most of the universe greater than what we see and know. There's dark matter, and greater than that is dark energy. And the reason why they use the word dark is because we don't understand it. We don't know what it is. Well, I'll say that yes, that's God of the gaps, but most of what is gaps. And most of what is what we don't understand. And all of that is what's actually the driving force of everything that there is in all time.
So I have gaps in my knowledge.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
So how do I fill those gaps?
Go put eyes on the chihuahua. You need him. You need him.
Well, you're not going to be able to in this lifetime because you can't know it all.
So how many lifetimes will I need to know it all?
You couldn't, because you are a human, and there's no way that you could know everything about every aspect of the entire universe.
Is he okay?
You are incapable. You're a reflection, a shadow, and this side, within this mortal coil or any other mortal coil, would you ever have the capacity to?
Is he okay?
He's perfectly fine standing in the sun.
Okay, come give me drugs. I'm gonna leave.
Okay.
Hold on, I'll be back
I'll be back.
later.
So if there's gaps in my knowledge, what is my knowledge? Is it solid knowledge stuff? I look inside my knowledge. Will I find gaps in that knowledge?
Is knowledge important? Isn't it that knowledge without wisdom is meaningless?
So, knowledge without wisdom.
I would say wisdom is the same as discernment, but
Discern.
that'd be interesting to debate about, or at least hear other opinions about. Dom, are you there? Did you leave us?
Maybe he's being quiet so that Rami can hang around.
Or maybe he's sleeping. You're nice. You let us watch you when you're sleeping. You're nice. You share, Hyro.
I've just been following other YouTubes as I'm hearing you guys talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and probably Jaro, trying to make a space for other people they want to share. I'll gladly hear them.
What is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? Oh, maybe I could find out in the website Wikidiff. See, wikidiff.com. So I can go to that and put knowledge versus wisdom. What is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? And then I put the word wisdom. They have two blanks. It says, what is the difference between blank and blank? Question mark. So you put that in there and then you hit the button. Oh, wisdom is what? Knowledge is acknowledgement, while wisdom is an element of a personal character that enables one to distinguish the wise from the unwise. Oh.
Love of wisdom. There's usually a reason for that.
Knowledge. So, acknowledgement. The word acknowledgement is the word knowledge inside. Act, AC, and meant.
You're breaking up, Joel. You're breaking up a bit.
As a verb, knowledge is to confess as true or to acknowledge. So we here I'm back. So knowledge is could be what is knowledge is like cognition or bits of information, while wisdom is arranging that information to come up with solving or choosing a decision. So you were presented whether to go left or right. So you gather up knowledge, bits of information, and you weigh out the pros and cons, and then you decide which way to go. And then that's wisdom, because you have looked at all pros and cons that you can think of, and then you make a choice. But what if you're reacting? You don't have time to gather knowledge, so you're reacting and you choose through instinct.
Well, there's reacting and there's responsibility, the ability to respond. You know, when people have like a near-death experience, they see this bright light. Yeah, because there is the bright light between knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Two different kinds of trees, sources. So for a lot of people, we struggle with discernment. We think about it, the ideal, you know, like there's a tree, you got wisdom on one side, you got understanding on the other side. Where's the child? Child is knowledge, to know things. Doesn't mean we have discernment. We can know how numbers work, but do we understand the energy of numbers, let alone the symbologies of letters? You know, sigils that the Hebrews use, for example, or the Egyptians with their, you know, their hieroglyphs. Once a person has that, you're kind of like the fool, because then you try to share that with other people. That's why people can only take most information from a written form, because you would have to also be in the presence of that energy. Again, it's energy, whether it's wisdom and understanding. Son, go get wise counsel. Basically talking about go to your feminine side. Now, because females are usually childbearing, and if they activated by having a child, they'll probably lean more towards things like intuition, insight. Men aren't, so men will usually use their hemispheres. So it's right or denounce the other side, wrong, which is fine. I'm not here to debate or argue with people. I might talk very harsh and all that because I've said before, Jaro, I get frustrated because there's so many books, but yet most of them, are they missing the mark? Maybe.
Mhm.
You know, and then we get caught up in human affairs, and I'm glad that Rami shared. He's talking about the Constitution. Question is, what nation wrote that Constitution? Or those amendments, sorry, those amendments. What nation wrote it? Was it favorable for all nations or just a couple? You know, personal tax, when did that come to be? It was supposed to be corporate tax. Why? Because it's their devices on the road. Who pays for the streetlights? Who pays for the road? It should be corporate taxes. You know, it's, you can't even ponder the ideal of equal taxation when there's big corporations, they don't even pay taxes.
Mm.
They work in countries like America and Canada, but they don't actually pay taxes. They do a shell game. Now, if people do research, they realize Starbucks does not pay taxes. They might on paper look like they do. Then you get Warren Buffett talking about things. Warren Buffett is another shill for them. He probably talks about, oh, I pay $200 million, but he gets a check for $1 billion. So it's a game. And the only reason why we pay taxes, because before it used to be called tribute, is because we've got away from the resources such as apples and all that. So we pay property tax, tribute, because you're leasing the land.
Mm.
You pay corporate taxes in the form of your electrical license or your accountant license. You get a speeding ticket, it goes to corporations.
Mm.
All that goes to big corporations. They make the Dow Jones look really, really small. Once you realize these are generational wealth. What do we get as the citizens? We get what the government's called passing a budget, but the government doesn't make the budgets. They got really smart people working for elite families, and they work for them because they can print whenever they want. Oh, so how much is it going to take you for Tesla for you to work for us? $1 billion? No problem. Here you go. Just be careful. Why? Because we could delete that by tomorrow. And
Wow.
that's where we're at. You know, we do have rulers here, and it's nice to respect them by at least getting to know who they are. But I get it. Most people are caught up in human affairs, and then they react. You said it a couple times today, Jaro. React. Again, act. Where's the ability to respond? Because if you do responsibility, then you can have accountability. But most people that react don't have accountability. What they do is they point fingers. Well, it's the government's fault. It's the church's fault. It's the synagogue's fault. It's science's fault. I can't believe NASA does what they do. Well, how much money and resources goes towards fueling military with the human race? We don't have to have a number, but it's a lot.
I have an appointment at 10.
And you have to go, my friend. I'm going to take off myself too. Don, thank you very much. Rami, thank you very much.
All right, you guys have a good weekend. Thank you.
Mhm.
Dominic, thank you for your wisdom and knowledge. Mm.
And yes, I hope you don't miss your appointment. So get going.
Oh, it's on Zoom.
Oh, good. You only have a few minutes. You can still get there on time. Awesome.
Maybe.
All right. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, Don, for your your wisdom and knowledge, your
Thank
wisdom and experience and example.
Yes, thank you as well, my brother.
Thinking. See
Yeah,
you time. Have a good week.
thank you. You too, my brother.
Time, mother. And so I must go. Thank you, Rami, for inspiring us to consider whether sin prevents one's virtue of faith or something like that. And things like that. What have I learned? To I'm going or what is my what is my homework for this week is to look at all the words I'm using and add the ending, the suffix ing. So, like for the example, the word eat, eating, cook, cooking, with the ing. So it's now, but with ing, it becomes a verb. So I must be going now. Thank you. Kind. I dedicate. Oh, my kind mother. May they think clearly.
Well, let me see. Who do we have? Just me. I hope you all had a good time, and we'll see you next week.